Okay.
Warming up. Should we have that as a caption?
What?
Like we're warming up or something. Show starting in a few.
I used to do that, but then kasi I also need the name and the
Visible at the start.
thumbnail.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking that.
So it is tricky. But yeah, sharing links first as we get things warmed up. Because live streams wait for people to some degree.
Okay. I'm very happy with our colors. Look. So it's
Mm-hmm.
nice. And the background's so bright compared to the others. Yeah, I think we're getting our lighting right now.
Okay. Progress.
Mm-mm. Oh, why am I in a different thread?
We click the notification.
Yeah. Starting very soon. Now we're sharing the links manually. Oops.
What?
I sent it to the first thread.
Oh,
To someone else.
well, surprise! You've been invited to
Yeah.
watch.
It's okay. Da-da-da. And then should share it. Newsfeed. Okay. That's running. That's running. Must now prepare the duck timer. Okay. Mhm. Okay. Yeah, the mouse here. It is 9:09. I guess we can start in a few minutes.
Of course, it's with like when you have lights on you that you really see all the oily spots in your glasses.
Yeah, we don't have a makeup team yet to touch up.
Get a makeup team. I don't think we're gonna get a makeup team.
You know, like they're the shiny.
Hey, I wash my face.
Yeah, but you didn't powder it down, so it doesn't work.
You're obsessed with powder.
No, that's how it is in makeup.
You
You have to
love
map yourself with
powder.
powder so it doesn't become glossy. Because if you're too glossy, you start looking like, Android beep, beep, beep. Okay, so it's 9:10. Do you want to wait a few more minutes or do we start?
I guess we can start and we'll just roll with it. So we're gonna run the credits and we'll see you in a bit.
Oh yeah! What do you say?
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a Monday, so it's a board game that we're talking about today. And that game is Dune Imperium.
This is not to confuse you. Yes, we already did an episode about a Dune board game, which is Dune by Gale Force 9, which in itself is a re implementation of a much older version of Dune.
Hmm.
And as much as we do enjoy that version, Doom Imperium kind of came out of nowhere and surprised us. We've had it for a while, admittedly.
Hmm.
Um, it was a it's tagged as a what is this a 2020 release.
Yes.
So it was definitely one of those things that were planned in time with the original release schedule
Hmm.
of the movie. But the movie got delayed a whole year, so suddenly there is this board game in the wild for everyone to play.
The board game is a 1 to 4 player game by designer Paul Denon and has you playing different personalities as you try to use intrigue, influence, and your military strength to gain control of Dune.
Yeah, so I think on the surface, oh hey Alvin, on the surface, it rather surprised me because Direwolf,
Hmm.
the publisher, and this particular designer is probably best known for Clank, which
Yes.
is a deck building dungeon crawling
Hmm.
game, which we also enjoy and own copies of. But so then I wasn't like, oh my god, am I really going to get into Clank on Dune? But that is the first thing we're going to say, that Dune Imperium is not Clank on Doom. The only thing they share is that they are deck building games.
The game uses deck building, card drafting, take that powers, variable progressive turn order, variable player powers, worker placement, and um, I guess you could say area control as
In a way,
the different mechanics that are present in the game.
okay, and so in terms of styling, this definitely is made to take reference from the movie.
Hmm.
It features all original art. It does not have movie stills for pictures, but the art is clearly inspired by the legendary movie, actors. And I say legendary like the studio, not legendary like I already know how great the movie is,
So
because we don't.
let's take a peek in the content.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kenny's here. He said he thought he was having deja vu, and like, yeah, it's a different Dune game. And then Mitch is here as well. Okay,
Yeah, the title though can sometimes be read as
Donk.
"Don't." Thankfully, there's that more prominent.
That was like in later release. When we first saw the logo of the
Yeah, it
movie,
didn't
it
have
was
that.
super dunk.
So opening the box, look, they tried to have it secure with these little add-ons.
Yeah, it is not the permanent part of the thing. It is really just slivers of foam that kind of help hold things in place.
But it works.
Yeah.
The board is a big board, not as big as the other Dune game.
So it's a 4 panel. Admittedly, I mean, if you read the label, are we back? Are we back? Okay. So you will see different factions on the side, like the Emperor, the Spacing Guild, and such.
Oops, no, not this
There's
side.
there's things on top for other places to go, but then like the main area, which is known as the conflict area, and you can just flip. Yeah, is this weird empty space that features two swords crossed,
Hmm.
although they look like two rifles. I don't know why, being held like swords.
Hmm.
This part was always weird to me because it doesn't really look. It doesn't make you feel like it's Dune. I
Yeah.
get it, sort of, but we'll get to why it is the way it is in a bit.
So the map is designed for a functional purpose. While most Dune games focus on the map of Dune, the planet
Yes,
itself as
like,
the main focus of the
and you
gameplay,
see that in the Gale Force 9 one.
we see it here as an abstract representation because the different areas are represented by these locations all throughout the map.
And these are like worker placement
Mhm.
locations.
Then you have the locations here on the side, which represent the different factions that you could try to reach out and make dealings with. By making dealings with the factions, your influence among their tracks rise, and as you rise, you get what are called favor tokens, which show they love you and not anyone else. But at the same time, you have other areas in the top which represent um, Landsrad, is that how you say it?
Yes,
The Landsrad
which is
Council,
basically the government, the democratic government under the
which
emperor,
is
sort of.
very hard to use unless you have money.
Yeah,
Mm. And then you have this area here, which is Chom, which is all about selling spice or making money. So it's all about making use of what you have if you're not dealing with them.
yeah,
And this board serves as the main focus of the worker placement mechanic and the area control mechanic.
and the victory point tracking. There's a lot going on in this board,
The game is broken down to a number of phases. Let's hold that so we can show it here.
and they made
Yeah!
sure to put the phases on the board.
Every round, players take their turns, but only after it is determined what this round will be focused on. Those cards represent the different challenges or the
Yeah.
different.
This
Um,
shadowy
yeah.
area on the board is where the draw pile and the discard pile of the conflict deck is.
Yes.
So every turn of the game, we declare what the conflict is, and it
Mhm.
could be as basic as just squabbling, and it will declare the rewards for whoever wins the conflict.
Mhm.
Versus later on, it's like the siege of Arrakis.
Or taking control of a location.
Yes,
And that's why this place is abstract because the conflict card tends to the conflict card tends to reflect what's going on here. After players take their turns, combat happens. The winner of the combat then gets the rewards of the conflict. And then the maker's turn happen wherein more spices added to locations you don't visit. Then recall, where everyone takes their workers back and a new round begins. Interestingly, the way this game is fashioned, and we haven't even gotten to the materials yet,
yeah, we're
is
just looking
that
at the board.
you can focus on just parts of the conflict. Like maybe you'll focus on the combat and not so much on the other things. Or maybe you'll even ignore the combat and focus instead on getting influence and all this and that. And those are all valid paths to victory.
Yeah, so the funny thing, I guess, in the challenge of the game is that this is a victory point game. So you will not win by winning every conflict necessarily, because conflicts give different things for prizes. More often than not, they give resources like spice
Mhm.
or water. Um, there are no victory points for these things at the end of the game. So you need to find other ways to earn victory points. And the game is surprisingly flexible in the many options it gives you. So you can choose a life of combat. You can be a politician and try to curry influence. You can be a trader and buy your way to
Mhm.
victory.
Or you can focus on intrigue where secret routes to success are present as long as you find a way to score them. The board game becomes very sad after you take the board out.
Well,
The
the
box.
box. It is a very functional four-way dividing insert.
Cardboard.
I am disappointed only because if you look at the clank boxes,
Mm-hmm.
they have so much more love to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what happened here. Was this a rushed release to make it in time for the original movie schedule?
Or was this a standard release because they were hoping to go full fledged,
Oh,
more
lower
special
cost.
release?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because and we're getting ahead of ourselves, but there is an upgrade pack that has been announced by Direwolf, which changes some of the components and makes this a lot fancier.
4 player bags, each with a different color. Um, these represent the tokens you can use from the agents to the scoring tokens to little cubes that you use to take note of your armies.
I will note very quickly that the starting the player tokens are the same regardless of player, whereas other games like the Gale Force 9 Dune have things very customized to the
Mm.
faction you're choosing. So if you're Atreides, you start with a certain setup. If you're whatever Harkonnen, you have a certain setup. In this case, you fundamentally all have the same starting materials, but then the only difference will be your leader.
Now, as it is with most worker placement games, it's a question of resources and managing what you have. The game offers 3 money, which is known as Solari in the game. Ah, the lights are killing it.
Which is in universe accurate.
Water, because if you're talking about the desert planet, of course, water is important. And spice. Unfortunately, not as creative as they could have been.
But
I don't
okay,
mind.
I don't mind in the sense that for Spice they chose the most favorite shape in modern board games, which is the hexagon.
Mm.
So I mean, well, technically they're hexagonal prisms, but that went well. The
Water
water is a giant
droplets.
droplet, which is a custom piece. Like I've never seen this particular shape of droplet. But then for money, yeah, they just went with circular discs, so that's okay.
Then you have the more general things. You have the intrigue cards, which represent a deck of cards that offer different things. For
And
example,
it's that tiny card size, guys.
favored subject, for example, allows you to play this card as a plot card to increase your favor in a certain area. Other cards suddenly allow you to do ambushes, to withdraw troops from combat, or to
Oh,
actually buy your way to victory, wherein you can pay this money to get victory
that has
points.
reminded me of my favorite intrigue card, which was Staged Incident,
Hmm.
where you had a lot of troops committed, and then you can pull them back. Like we're okay, we're not part of this combat.
We have one of the unique pieces,
The Mentat.
which is an extra worker that you can purchase with the right amount of resources for one extra move that round alone. And while that sounds small, it makes a huge difference in the game. We have a few more tokens from the faction tokens, which are played if you are playing the Baron. It has you choose
He makes a prediction at
who
the
will
beginning
win.
of the game. It's not like the Atreides Gale Force 9 prediction of who wins, but
Mhm.
it's a certain trigger in the game, then he gets a reward.
You have the favor tokens, which are meant to be in the intrigue track. Sorry, in the influence track. Once you've gained influence with a certain faction, you get a victory point, which is
It's
represented by the gold orb.
as usual, it's not clear on this little webcam, but the gold orb is a victory point, and to be fair, it is a consistent symbol used throughout the game.
You have your first player token that shows one of the makers, the Shai Hulud, and notably, it looks different from the movie. Hmm.
I think they sort of it feels like it was based on movie concept art. I mean, like
Yeah,
the mouth looks
it
similar,
feels very this the team that worked on this was not shown the actual production
which
stuff.
is classic,
Yeah,
right? Which
which
is
is
a
how it is.
classic movie tie-in problem.
And then with that, we now move on to the other bigger elements. So first,
Oh, Mitch is asking, how is the material of the tokens? Well, it's standard cardboard punch out,
mhm,
fairly thick, but nothing amazing.
you have your player guides, which represent all the turn actions and the flow, but they also double as your characters because whenever you play, you must choose who you are representing in the game.
So these are your leaders, and look, it's Timothy Chalamet. Chalamet. No, but yeah, so it's already it's movie derived art,
Hmm.
um, and thus we have a better look at the Baron Harkonnen. Look, so they generally look like their human counterparts,
Mm-mm.
um, and it summarizes the ability that each leader has, which will shape your strategy.
You have the conflict cards, which come in three levels: conflict 1, conflict 2, conflict 3, which nicely represent the escalating conflicts and dangers that are going on. It might be first as simple as a skirmish, but later on it might become as bigger as a guild bank raid and you get
All the
money.
rewards are money.
But then in the later parts, it might be a battle for the Imperial Basin where you get two
Two
victory
victory
points and
points.
control of the Imperial Basin.
Yeah. So
Me,
to be fair, the actually the main part is a lot of symbol driven
mhm.
stuff on the conflict cards. It you'll take at least the first game to get used to the symbols, and then it kind of flows after that.
You have the market cards, which are represented or a representation of the different ways your influence and your activities have led you forward in the game. Whether it's getting allies among the Bene Gesserit, or finding infantry that will work for you, or specific characters like Dr. Yue, who will always have the dot on his forehead, but we cannot see it right now.
It's required. It's the mark of
Yeah,
imperial
but
conditioning.
camera's not helping. Would you like to talk about the interesting thing about the cards?
Okay, so
Here,
as
you
far
can
as a
hold.
deck building game goes, you will have a starting hand of basic cards, and
Let
then
me show those. Let me show those.
eventually you'll be able to recruit these cards.
Oh, I think they're there.
No, I don't think so. Then the anatomy of a card though is like, and I can't go too close because it becomes blurry. But you have the cost and influence. And sorry, I don't know what to call it. I forgot it. But the for recruiting, um, up there, you'll have the faction locations that this person can go to, which we'll explain more later. But there is always an active ability. Well, there's an active ability space and sort of discard ability space. So you only what okay one thing that stands out about the game and among worker placement games is that you have two agents,
Hmm.
and then later you can have three, four if you pay for the mentat, but it takes an action to take the mentat. So it's a weird, like, did I really get an action or not? But it is what it is.
So let's go back to the board. You will notice the board, like here in the top, they have that orange symbol. Here in the area above the battle area, you have the blue symbols. Here in the factions, you have faction symbols. Those symbols determine where you can put your worker, depending on the card you play.
So, like, for example, this Bene Gesserit initiate has the spaces for green, blue, and yellow. So they can go to places like the cities on Dune or the spice fields,
Mhm.
but they cannot go to the allied factions of like the Emperor or the Fremen.
Interestingly, this is one of the deck building games we've seen wherein the base cards are not necessarily cards you want to get rid of as
Yes.
quickly as possible. Some cards like Seek Allies, you will notice, is focused on the different factions, whereas other cards like Dune do nothing but allow you to access the desert area, which is the yellow areas. And if you are unable to get cards in the market that allow you access to those yellow areas, then you might still hold on to those basic cards.
So it's weird. It's weird because the cards determine where you can go. So it
Mm.
feels sort of like things like Mage Knight, where you're building your action hand, and
Mhm.
then as you play them, then you're trapped. But then the other caveat is since there is an active power space and a passive one, so well, sort of passive. The active ones are the ones you played. You place a worker, you can play a card.
Then you get the
You
active
sorry, you
power.
play a card, then you can move your worker, then you get the active power. Or you can keep those cards until the end of the turn when you reveal the rest of your hand and you get the abilities under.
So part of the strategy when you use your cards is do you use the active powers immediately because you know they'll move you forward, or do you hold on to them and not play them during your turn? Because at the end of the turn, every card you still have in your hand, if it does have an ability for that reveal phase, still helps you.
So, for example, we can take this special card, which is the Bene Gesserit Sister. She allows you to visit the Bene Gesserits and green spaces. Has no active ability, but then you could say it's worth it because you can go to a faction location
Mhm.
and the Lance Rad. But if you discard her at the end of your turn, you could get two recruitment points or 2 points for the combat.
The,
So what do you do?
the game, of course, has three other market cards that can be purchased. You have the Liaison, which allows you to get recruit points faster.
And they count as a Fremen.
You have Fold Space, which you can only get by visiting the guild, right? It's a guild.
And
But
it's
they
super
allow you
flexible.
anywhere.
Yeah, so it's
And
all factions
and if you trash this card, you can draw a card.
so you don't lose the card.
And then lastly, in the tradition of clan,
Yes.
you have the expensive card, which is the Spice Must Flow. It doesn't bring you anywhere, but it's a victory point.
Upon purchase, not
And
every time you play it.
and you get spice now whenever you play it.
Oh, when you reveal it,
When you reveal it,
not
when you
when you
reveal it.
play it. So it's a clunker of a card, similar to like the tomes and whatnot in Clank. It's tricky.
Now that pretty much covers all the components for a standard game. When you are playing with less than a complement of three players,
So there is a solo mode.
that is when House Hagal comes into play. House Hagal uses the components of a player that you are not using, a player color that you are not using, and is composed of various cards that then, in an automated way, allow you to determine the actions of a third imaginary player. Amazingly, this works so well.
I think this
We
makes the difference of this game
we
beyond
love how good Hagal plays.
beyond the brevity of the game compared to Gale Force 9 Dune and the relative It's definitely a simpler game
Hmm.
than Gale Force 9 Dune. House Haggle system super solves my main challenge with Gale Force 9 Dune, which is it is a terrible two-player game
Mm-mm.
because um, that game is so cutthroat and off balance by design. I'm not saying was it symmetry is not needed in all games.
Yes,
So that is a super asymmetric game, and if you fall asleep on the at the wheel in the first turn, you can lose the second round.
because the others can take that advantage and jump into victory within that second round.
Yeah, and we if you play with the in the Gale Force 9 Dune, if you play with the recommended like Atreides, Harkonnen factions, there is like only one way those turns go out. It's like automatic. Each is going to race to control cities, and if you are not careful, you will lose the game in round two.
Mm-mm.
And it's I still love the game, but we don't get to enjoy the rest of it because it's like it is the only way to play that starting scenario.
Mm-mm.
You must run and try to take those cities. So in Dune Imperium, the House Hagel system super balances it out. And it in a two-player game, House Hagel operates the turn after the first player.
So it always interferes between the players' turns, which makes it such an interesting twist because you never know which player it will end up blocking.
And then what's even worse is that because there is what is known as the Swords Master, which is sort of like in Lords of Waterdeep at round four, you unlock another agent.
Mhm.
In Dune Imperium, you have to buy your third agent.
Yes.
And if the first player buys their third agent, House Hagal will have three turns, even though you, as the second player, may only have two. So it's a pain. It's an annoying pain when Hagal moves three times, messing up the board. But that's fine. The cards are
Yeah,
still
I'm trying
here.
to make sure that it's
Donk.
still it's yeah.
It's still donking.
um,
Okay, so yeah, so you but basically you start out with only two agents. That means you have two actions per turn minimum. Um, and then the conflict cards act like a timer. So you have basically I forgot like five turns or no five like a max of like 10 turns
mhm.
in the game. It's a very short game. It's very
Now,
short. It's very
now
tight.
Dune Imperium is so good a game that it has already gotten some notice. It is the runner-up for thematic game and the runner-up for medium game of the year for the Golden Geek 2020 awards. Despite it being very recently released, it already has an upcoming expansion, which is
Rise of Ix.
that is soon to come out. It has two mobile app support present. You have the Dune Imperium. Sorry, let me get the full name just so it's correct. You have the Dune Imperium companion app, which allows you to play solo, has a digital version of House Hagal, but then you also have the Dire Wolf Game Room app, which then offers an expansion for the Dune Imperium game, which is the Blitz mode. The Blitz mode is a new way to play the game wherein you start with a bit more resources. The setup is guided. There are schemes wherein you try to decide who will win, and
Mm.
by betting, you can affect therefore the course of the whole game. It has a 7 round maximum, which makes the game so much faster. And where was that? There's the Arrakis Scouts mode as well, which is another game mode that's present. So not bad for a game which has not really been, you know, super famous compared to like other games like Root and the like.
And I feel like it ended up, I mean, sadly, it ended up going under the radar
Oh,
because
the
its
movie.
release was tied to the movie.
Yes.
So, since it came out before the movie, then it didn't make sense to pump in a lot of
Mm.
marketing money into it, especially in the middle of a pandemic. So, it just sort of silently came out and then permeated throughout the place. But then I know it's like hard to get now. So, it's
So
weird.
the way it works in schemes, at the start of the game, you secretly write down who you think will win. At the end of the game, when you determine someone is the winner, if you're the only person who picked the winner, you get two extra victory points. So that suddenly can make you win
Yeah.
because you suddenly bump up.
Oh, we gotta talk about that. So the end game is like once someone hits 10 victory points, or you play the last conflict, the game's gonna end. And 10 points doesn't sound like a lot, but it takes forever to go there. And notice the track triggers at 10, it goes up to 12. It is very rare you are going to get above 12.
We have not had a game that gone beyond 12.
I think we hit 12, but
And
that was it.
this is despite us having turns we're in the last round. I scored 3 points, and that makes me 9. Or that makes me 10.
And I guess you have to appreciate that it's super gated, but also very balanced. So, for example, once
Persuasion is the name of their recruit power,
okay,
not influence.
so when you gain 2 points of influence with any faction, you
Mhm.
automatically get 1 victory point because of getting influence. So by right, there are 4 factions. Everybody can get 4 victory points just by visiting those spaces twice
And
in the game.
note, you have your first victory point when you reach a certain spot, which anyone can get.
That's 2.
So it's not a what's this? It's not a first one to get it.
It's everybody gets it.
First one to cross this line gets favor, which is another victory point. But if someone goes past that person, they steal the favor away. So you have now this rush to the topmost slot, which we of course love from Suburbia.
Mm.
Suburbia All Stars.
It feels very Suburbia All Stars. And then at the same time, if anything causes your influence to go down, you lose that victory
Mhm.
point. And that's why they printed it on the token. I mean, they're all little reminders that if you go below this point, you lose the point.
Yes.
So that was kind of brilliant.
So to sum up, deck building, very interesting how it has new twists. The standard starting cards, use them to buy new cards was there, but then they added the reveal phase, wherein the cards you don't use are still useful, and then they added the action placement, the location placement mechanic of the cards themselves. Just because you like the power isn't the only reason you'll buy the card. You might buy it for the locations they'll open up, or you might buy it for the combos you can create.
And I feel like they learn from things like Clank and Space, where
Mhm.
Clank and Space had
Factions.
those factions, they're like scoundrels and whatnot. So this has similar things, which represents the many forces who vie for control of Dune. So you have things like the Fremen, the Bene Gesserit
So you might
Sisterhood,
have the
the
card,
Spacing
the
Guild.
card which gives you additional stuff if you played earlier another Fremen card. You might have the Bene Gesserit cards that allow you to draw more if you played Bene Gesserit
So look,
Sisters.
this Fremen Spice Hunter, if he is revealed and you have what is known as Fremen Bond, which means you revealed another Fremen card this turn, you get the extra bonus.
Mhm.
So it pays to kind of specialize. So again, unlike Gale Force 9, where you are like either the Atreides or the Harkonnen, in this one, you're still just sort of like paying people off and like, oh, I got contacts with the guild and I got contacts with the Landsrad and these are I'm using all these to get to make my way.
And then even the conflict in the conflict arena area, which I'm showing here,
Good job.
each cube counts as 2 points worth of combat strength. Sword symbols only count as one.
And cards typically give
So
swords.
while you can get extra strength from cards, it's still different from having your own units here. But note, however, when units are brought in here, you don't just play cards to play them in. Certain cards allow you to play them in what is known as your garrison, which
The
are
circles.
the circles here.
So each
But then
player has a garrison.
the location must be a combat zone, which has the crossed swords symbol there. And it's only by playing actions in a location can you then move people from your garrison to the combat area. So suddenly, it's this intricate chain of if you want to win the conflict, then you have to make sure you go to that location. But it's pointless to go to that location if you don't have the troops to send out. And it might be hard to send out the troops if you don't have the money to pay for them.
So it's frustrating because there are spaces like oh it's like I'm super gonna have to open it. Okay. Oh well yeah. There is a let's just do it this way. I'm always like I don't know. Okay, this works. Okay, in the land trap, for example, this place is literally called Rally Troops. You pay 4 money, you get 4 troops in your garrison. That's cool. it is not a combat space.
Mhm.
So they just go to your garrison and like have some coffee.
On the other hand, you might, for example, visit Carthage, which is
Yes.
up here. Where did it go? Here. But that only gives you one troop. However, since it's a combat space, you can actually send some of the people in your garrison, as well as that new troop, to the combat zone.
Yeah, so
But you
suddenly
might need water.
it reminds me oddly enough of New York Zoo, where when you place a new zoo tile, you can put an
To
animal.
follow in.
And if you have one more animal of the same type, either in the houses or in another tile, you can follow and join that tile. So the combat zones are like that, where if you go to a combat space, you can put any troops you gained in that action plus a certain number from your garrison.
Now, one of the other intriguing things I found here was it was one of the few games that had resources, but did not have the usual universal rule of three of this resource and it becomes one of any.
Oh yeah, there is no conversion.
So there is a point in time when certain resources are pointless. Maybe you focus on creating so much money that you have a nice engine now for money. But after you've accomplished most of the actions in the Lance Grab,
The lance rad.
Lance Rad, then your money might not be as useful anymore other than getting more troops. Because you've already gotten your Swordmaster, you've already earned your High Council seat, at most probably hiring a mentat and rallying the troops. Um, Water is always prominent if you want to visit the better portions, the better desert locations on the map. But beyond that, there isn't really much use for water.
Yeah.
Spice is awesome to influence the emperor. It's also awesome to influence the guild or make money. But then if you've maxed out your guild and your emperor influence,
Then am I gonna go
spice
there?
isn't going to be that useful either. So it just reminds you that even if you might focus on hoarding the resources, that's not the way
It's
to
not
win.
necessarily a path to victory,
Mhm.
which is kind of awesome in how it goes. Mitch is like playing time 2 hours, actually shorter. The game is rated to 1 to 2 hours on Board Game Geek. I totally feel yeah we can do an hour.
Mhm.
We can do an hour for a 3 player game. I think because there's not many actions to do. And then I think the most painful thing early in the game is that when you buy your swords master, so you have 3 agents, hooray! You have a hand of 5.
Yes.
So that means you're going to play 3 of your 5 cards in your hand, and the other 2 are going to be revealed.
Mhm.
It makes such a difference, and it's so painful because then like. Do I really have the actions I want to do?
Yes.
Am I just going to visit the sand again because I just get Dune Desert Planet again?
But
So
then it
yeah.
forces you to realize that this is a game that gives you so much freedom, but not really.
Mm.
Because in as much as you can go anywhere you want, do you have the cards to do so? In as much as it allows you different paths to victory, do you have the engine that's working in that way? And lastly, can you still go there? This
because
game,
it's single one worker you're blocked.
but
So
this game really has that impact of I was planning to go there this turn,
oh
and what makes it so painful is you can't necessarily go there the next turn because you've used up the card.
yes, you
And
have a new set of cards in your hand, and there is no action that lets you copy other actions,
yes,
which is something you also see in a lot of worker placement games. So this game is super tight, guys. It's super tight. Don't greet the time. Okay, I think we're back.
So to go to I guess closer to wrap up. First, this one or the earlier Doom game?
Apples and oranges. They are both good games. It
Mhm.
depends on what you're in the mood for. But I'm not gonna lie, we play this one more because it's easier to bring out, it's easier to teach, and then you're done. So, well, okay. To be fair, Gale Force 9, you can be done very quickly, but
Mhm.
it doesn't feel good. This one, it's a fair amount of play, and then you'll feel good.
I
We've typically finished the game because someone hit 10 victory points instead of running out of conflict cards.
yes.
But to be fair, we're always in the phase 3 conflict cards.
Yes.
So it's feasible.
So me, I think I'll have to favor this more, only because it feels like there's a lot of things you can do. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't have the grittiness of this the anger of sabotage. This game is amazing in that.
But yeah, and
But I
it's
feel
a
this
different
one
time.
but I feel this one works best with at least 4 players.
Oh yeah, in a big game, this is awesome.
If it's not big enough, I don't feel this is worth playing.
Because I think what you because the faction powers in Gale Force 9 Dune are so crazy.
Mhm.
That's what you want. You want a big table with many players, and you never know what's gonna happen. This one is super tight. I don't know, and we've only played it for a max of three
Yeah.
players, whether it's the two of us and Hagal, or with an actual third person. And I think that's the sweet spot.
And it's kind of scary that this one, unlike most worker placement games, the number of spaces never changes.
Oh, that too. There's like there's nothing else.
You don't have an
Nothing comes
additional
open.
board later on
There are
for
no
more
nuke
spaces.
locations.
You don't have expanding locations which other players create.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This one, the spaces you have at the start are the only ones present. So it's an intricate dance of, I have to do it now because I have the card. But is it really what I want to do? But then again, maybe it's not, but it blocks them. So I might as well do it. This one is amazing though in reflecting the conflict in
The nuances of the
and
factions.
in making you so afraid of that storm.
Yeah. And betrayal.
Yes.
I mean, like the when you pull out a traitor in Gale Force 9
Mhm.
Dune, it is the best feeling ever. It's like ha ha.
And when you do combat, the way this does it with the blind wheels,
Ah,
with the weapon, with poison, and all this and that, amazing.
to be fair to Direwolf Dune
Mhm.
Imperium, what's this? They capture some of that with their intrigue cards,
Mhm.
which what's this? Include really random things sometimes. Hence things like what is staged incident,
Mhm.
where I've used that to get other players to commit their armies to a conflict that I do not care about winning.
Mhm.
And I will pull them back because what is the advantage? I have a full garrison next turn
Mhm.
and they don't. So if the conflict now is a reward I actually want, I'm in a better position to move my guys in.
Yeah.
So it's little things like that, and then crazy stuff like I think there was like wheels within wheels, and then if your influence is two on all tracks, you get two more victory points because
Mhm.
your plan succeeded. So nice little upsets
Or
like
like,
that.
what was that other one wherein you lose one favor in one faction, but you gain two in two others?
Oh, that's a
You gain
card.
one in two others.
That was a card. That's like this weird complex diplomacy card, which is scary awesome.
Frustratingly, this one has two expansions, which I don't know if we will find. They're both cards, right?
Ah, well, there's the Rise of X formal expansion, but there is a Jessica promo card
Yeah.
out there, which is something we're never probably gonna get because it is yeah, it's a single promo card of Jessica in a different costume. It's
Mhm.
Fremen Jessica versus like wife of Leto Jessica.
So let's have a moment staring at the boxes because that'll be our thumbnail for this episode.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, to wrap up,
Well, we haven't. Is there a strategy we can talk about?
yeah.
Um, understand your leader power.
Mm-hmm.
So the game comes with a starting set of 8 leaders. And the game is so nice in that it even rates level of complexity from 1 to 3
Mm-hmm.
in terms of their strategy. For example, Paul Atreides, he can always look at the freaking top card of his deck.
Mm-hmm.
There's no action, there's no phase he can do it. He can always look at the top card of his deck. And then each player has a signet ring card, which represents you sort of playing your main ability as a leader.
Mhm.
So his is to draw a card. So basically, he can always check what card is coming up and decide if he wants to play a draw card power or not. Should he have other cards that support this? So whereas you have other ones like there's this lady who's addicted to spice, so every time you harvest spice, you lose one because she eats it. And then it's like, how is this helpful? But understand your leader powers because your leader powers will really determine what you're gonna do. It will determine what cards may benefit you. So, for example, if you are Paul Atreides with this draw, this ability to draw card, to look at your deck at any time, then naturally you're going to want to build cards into your deck that let you draw cards, which most likely are Bene Gesserit cards or some Fremen cards.
Mhm.
So it super makes sense in the lore. Then you want to ally accordingly.
Yes.
Versus if you're Leto has this weird like if he is the lower on an influence track, he can move up once for free because he's a super popular guy,
Mm.
and then crazy things like that. So then he benefits from that card that lets you drop influence one step to increase another by two, because then he's super like, well, I can get it back later because I can always bump up one power. So it's nice that understanding your leader powers is super key, and that's how it's gonna feel different despite being standard deck building setup where everybody has the same starting tokens and the same cards. Yeah, so that's like number one, no brainer. What else would you recommend, Toby?
Well, that's pretty much the main tactics to consider. I think the only last one I'd add is know that you don't really have to win every conflict.
Yes.
Preparing for a conflict usually takes um,
2 to 3
the two
turns.
actions that you
Yeah.
already have for that round. So unless you've prepared for conflicts beforehand, you have people in the garrison already waiting, then it might be okay to just let it be and focus on other things. Bear in mind that there are rewards for second place in a conflict, and I think depending on the players,
You get a third place
yeah.
also.
So while others might be focused on it, you might be able to further your other plans by focusing on others. And then lastly, pay attention as well to what actions your opponents take, because that gives you a glimpse of what actions they can't take in the later turns. While you are also locked onto the actions you have available on your cards, if you suddenly realize that next turn he's most likely going to have only cards for the desert, and you might have that same problem, then maybe that turn you're already planning to visit the desert by getting water ahead of time.
At the same time, I guess I'll throw in like, don't ignore conflicts. Like there are
Mm-mm,
games you feel even though you're building a completely different engine, because sometimes there are conflicts that people ignore,
mm-mm.
and then suddenly if you just commit one troop, you can win it, and then it
Yes.
could give you an influx of resources for the next round.
Yes.
Another thing, which I think there's no perfect answer to, but it's always hard to decide: swords master or high council seat. High council seat will let you recruit cards faster. A
Mm-mm.
swordsman is a third action, and thus you get more hand
But
utility.
both require money to accomplish.
And it's a fair amount because a high council seat is 5, and then your swords master is 8.
Mm-mm.
But then I have never regretted getting a high council seat, because that means you always have 2 more points to recruit
Two more
cards from the
persuasion.
market every turn, regardless of your other card that you play. So
Mhm.
even if you have no persuasion in the cards that you reveal at the end of the round, if you at least have a high council seat, you can still purchase something for 2. And there are a lot of good cards, even if they're for 2.
And then last, I guess, would be try to make sure you're always using your faction special power.
Mm.
There's such an edge in the game to have them. So if you actually find yourself spending 2 3 turns and you haven't used the power, then you're shooting yourself in the leg.
Or at the very least, you're ignoring the potential strategies
Mhm.
unlocked by your character. And then I would say, I guess, last thing is don't ignore intrigue cards.
Mm-mm.
It's sort of like Waterdeep in the sense that you know that something fishy goes on when people are playing intrigue. The intrigue cards are crazy, are wildly inconsistent. I mean, like, some of them benefit combat, some of them benefit influence, some of them
Mhm.
benefit end game. But you will never get the same set in every game because there are so many intrigue cards and limited ways to get them beyond like the Bene Gesserits or stuff. So don't ignore them. I have found even just having 1 to 2 of these cards in the game can totally change things, because it is an ace up your sleeve, or it is intimidation. It's like a blue magic player who leaves 2 islands untapped, whether or not he has a counter spell. It's
Mhm.
a deterrent that makes people wonder, does that mean he's going to ambush me in this conflict? So then they may overcommit, and then you don't have to. I mean, things like that. So it's a cool mechanic.
So haven't actually gotten around to seeing every card in the game.
Yes.
And that was by intention.
Yes.
We like the joy of as the market churns out new cards. Oh my god, it's ganyan, and oh, that's what they can do. So that's part of what we found makes us very happy about this game. You might want to consider doing that if you haven't started with your own game as well.
At the same time, I will say this is not a chintzy movie tie-in product.
Yes.
It is. I mean, the card. If you look at the market cards, they are super based on the books. I mean, yes, art style and character depictions of major characters match the movie, but in terms of like depth of lore, it
Mm-mm.
goes pretty deep. So don't dismiss this as just a movie tie-in game. It is a solid game on its own.
Yes.
Very very fun. Um,
So like we've never drawn this, the Worm Riders.
No, I've gotten the Worm Rider.
Have you? I don't
I
recall
have gotten
using
the
that.
Worm Rider, but then it just gives you Fremen stuff.
It's two spice when you play it active, but if you have Fremen, it's like lots of swords.
I haven't been able to secure Liat Kynes for myself. Like
Mhm.
I see her and like I want her then, and then I haven't gotten Chani yet. I've gotten I've gotten Gurney, I've gotten Duncan because yeah, let's get Duncan Idaho. I mean, this is it's just fun. I just like these little moments
Mhm.
and to see what they do. Um, but yeah, just it's a surprisingly great game. I mean, I wasn't sure. I was in the camp of, well, okay, I love Dune. I love deck building games. I guess we'll get Dune Imperium.
Mhm.
But then when Toby finally got the copy and brought it home, and like, wow, this game is great. And I know the first time we played it, we played 2 rounds that night, and
Yeah.
then um, the only shame is that it came out during the pandemic, so we haven't really circulated it with our board game friends.
Yes.
So it's a pain, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
I
Yeah.
am anxious though to see what the card is that represents the Shai Hulud devastating a place.
Mm,
I
mm.
have not seen a card that does that yet, and I haven't seen an effect that matches that feeling. But I'm sure there should be something.
Yeah, and we'll see. And the House of X, the Rise of X expansion, which is coming up, offers what's this new factions. And when we say by factions, they're like things on the market card. So we have
Mm.
Fremen and we have
House
Bene
Ekaz?
Gesserit. So yeah, this one it introduces the that weird prequel book house that runs X. X
Yeah.
for those unfamiliar is the high technology planet. Uh, so they produce a lot of illicit stuff in this world where thinking machines are banned.
So the site mentions that there will be 6 new leaders across 3 houses to be added. You have Archduke Armand Ekaz, who on his power is coordination. Reveal turn. If you have at least 2 agents on green, blue, or yellow board spaces, you may trash one of your cards at play.
Hmm.
His
Signet
signet ring
ring.
is conscript. You may acquire a card that costs 3 or less.
Oh wow.
Prince Rombor Verinus.
Yeah, he's the Ixian.
Vernius. Heavy last gun cannons. Your dreadnoughts have 4 strength instead of 3 because it's a new unit. The
Yeah,
dreadnoughts.
yeah, it's this big ship.
And then you have Ixion technology, wherein it's something or something, which I guess is favor or something.
Or technology, I guess. It's a new
You have
ability.
dreadnought units that can occupy and take over a location. Then you have cards which are the technology tiles that can be acquired for spice, and unlike cards, do not shuffle into the player deck. Instead, they are placed directly in front of you and provide a permanent upgrade. To
So
your
I'm
game.
excited because we of course one of the ones they've shown is a wind trap that makes water.
And,
Why not?
and then when you win a conflict, you get more water.
Yes.
And then there was, of course, the upgrade pack, which we already ordered. The upgrade pack has a lot of miniatures, beautifully crafted.
So it replaces your agents with like official minis.
You have a metal coin for the first player token, but still
It's still
shows
that
the
weird
old art
worm.
and not the movie art. You have the colored bases so that you can place on the figures. So I guess the figures, well, since they're not,
There
the
are
colors are not tied to the
there are
actor.
there are troop minis in the thing.
And then you have other special units as well.
Well, yeah, you're gonna replace the faction markers with 3D printed things, so that's kind of cool. So of course, like the guild is a guild highliner, which is a tube, but That's how their ships look like, and things like that. So it adds basically it adds minis to this game.
Mhm.
You don't need it. Nobody needs the upgrade pack, but definitely want it. I mean, like, because I say don't need in the sense that I wouldn't knock the base game because
Yeah.
the wooden tokens are nice. I love wooden tokens. I will favor wooden tokens over small cardboard things or plastic ones any day.
Mhm.
I love the feel of wooden tokens. So those cubes representing your troops and your different movements. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. But then the upgrade just goes that much extra and gives you little minis so that you can feel things more. And it does not change gameplay. It is not an expansion. And Board Game Geek isn't. It is rated as an accessory,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
it
cool.
doesn't even have any expansions. It doesn't have any new
No
cards or
promo card or
something.
anything. So no, we're not gonna get that darn Jessica card yet. It's
Mm-mm.
it's it's its own thing.
But I think it has containers.
Yeah, I think they're and it's but it's funny because it really feels like this is the let's get out the game out quick and cheap, and then the upgrades like this is how we really wanted to release the game. That's how I feel about the upgrade
Or
pack.
like if this game didn't land the license, then this would have been the Kickstarter release.
Yeah, so it's like this is what happens when you make a game first before you make it a collectible.
All right. I guess that's it.
Mitch says he's excited to play. Oh my gosh, Mitch, we're super excited
Mhm.
to get people, get you in our gaming circle to play this. I really enjoy this game. I will say as much that there are creative people on Steam Workshop who have tried to like approximate this on Tabletop Simulator. It's not an official port, but it's workable. But if you can get your hands on it, super get the game. Super get the game. I would recommend it. And then I think Rise of X is gonna make it only
Mhm.
more awesome. And this is the Dune pattern because Gale Force 9 Dune, their first expansion was Ixians and Telaxu. So it's like it's the only thing we can do really. When you expand a Dune
Yeah.
game, yeah, you bring in the technologists and the traitorous genetic manipulators being the Telaxu. So why not, guys? Why not? So while we're all waiting for the movie, and I know it's like, oh, yeah, before we go, like unintentionally, we ended up making this Dune week. Don't know. There's no good reason. It's just that we watched the new trailer and it looks awesome. Um, could we have done this closer to the movie's release? Sure.
We don't know when that's happening.
We don't know, so we just figure we'll do it now. But yeah, so this whole week we're doing Dune related episodes. Tomorrow for food, our food episode, we're talking about spice, cause yeah. And then Thursday we're talking about how things have progressed in terms of like the road to the movie.
What
We
what we feel about the new trailer, how our feelings have changed from the original teaser.
mm,
Um,
we did a pseudo reaction thing to that
yeah,
teaser.
and I'll have to admit, very big shift in terms of excitement.
Yeah. The trailers are
The
definitely
first
working.
trailer was a lot of apprehension and hopefulness.
Yeah.
This one, the hope is strong. The
Mm-hmm.
hope is very strong.
And then for Friday,
Everyone's saying we have to do Spice Girls. Maybe the week after.
maybe. So for Friday, we're doing phobias because one of the things that's popular in Dune is the litany against fear, where
Mhm.
fear is the mind killer. So it's something from the suggestion queue. We're going to talk about different phobias.
Mhm.
I don't know how that's going to go. We're definitely not experts on that topic, but we will have fun with it to wrap up Dune week. So I hope you all can join us for our three more planned episodes related to Dune.
Yep. But that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next time.
For questions or suggestions for future episodes, or like how can we do a proper Dune week on the week of the movie's release, feel free to fill out the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. Your idea may be featured as an episode topic in the future. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobi No Shade, RG Suniko.
You can also check out our blog, baduypray.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. What did you think of Dune Imperium? Have you had a chance to play it yet? Let's compare notes in the comments.
Mhm.
And be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride. Good night, everyone. Backup thumbnail. Arr.